Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling something pretty interesting. We're diving into the Almanack of Naval Ravikant thing.
Oh yeah, this one's really cool.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this naval guy.
Yeah.
Everyone says he's like a really, really smart thinker and entrepreneur.
Yeah, he's definitely made a name for himself in the tech world and as an investor. But this book, it's not just your typical business advice,
Yeah.
It's more like a collection of his big ideas on wealth, happiness, and like how to live a life that actually means something.
Right, and what's kind of unique about it is it's all sourced from his own stuff.
Yeah.
Like they've taken his tweets, blog posts, podcasts from like the past decade and put it all together. It's kind of a cheat sheet to like his brain.
Yeah. It's a great compilation. And for this deep dive, we're going to be mainly focusing on the parts about wealth and happiness, his ideas about how to make money without relying on luck, the art of decision making, and this whole concept that happiness is a skill you can actually learn. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. And there's even a foreword in here that gives some really cool insights into his personal journey. It talks about how his core principles have stayed consistent throughout his life and how he's influenced so many people along the way.
Yeah, and the person who created the book, they really wanted to capture all this knowledge and make it like permanently accessible.
Okay, so for our listeners, what we're aiming to do here is distill this whole thing down to its most powerful nuggets. We want to help you guys get smarter faster without overwhelming you. So we're going to try to extract those aha moments and look at them from multiple perspectives. We're after those actionable insights and hopefully a few surprising facts along the way.
That's the goal.
So let's jump right in. One of the first things that struck me about Naval's approach to wealth is that he doesn't buy into this whole idea that it's all about luck or just working your butt off.
You're right. He's really adamant that wealth creation is a skill, something you can learn and get better at. And, he's not saying hard work isn't important. It's just that you can be working 80-hour weeks in, say, a really demanding job and still not get rich. It's more about knowing what to do, knowing who to do it with, and getting the timing right.
Right. Like you can be swinging a hammer all day, but if you don't know how to build a house.
Exactly. It's about mastery, not just brute force. And one thing that really stood out to me was his conviction that you can create wealth ethically. He totally rejects the cynical view that you have to be ruthless or cut corners to get ahead.
Yeah, that resonated with me too. He's all about building wealth with integrity, which is pretty refreshing.
Right. And he's also super critical of the whole status game. He points out that people who are obsessed with just appearing successful often end up wasting their energy criticizing those who are actually building things of value.
It's like they're playing a different game entirely.
Totally. And one with much lower stakes and much lower rewards. Now, here's a concept that's absolutely central to Naval's thinking. He says you're not going to achieve real financial freedom by just trading your time for a paycheck.
So basically what most of us are doing.
Right. He argues that if you're only getting paid for your time, your earning potential is limited by the number of hours in a day. Even if you're a high-earning professional, you're still capped by that hourly rate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What he advocates for is owning equity, owning a piece of the businesses that are generating value. That's how you unlock real wealth, because you're participating in the upside, the growth.
So how do you create that kind of value in the first place? Naval talks about finding what society wants, but doesn't yet know how to get, and then delivering it on a massive scale. He uses smartphones as an example.
Right. And it's a perfect example. I mean, not that long ago, the idea of having a supercomputer, a high-quality camera, and a way to communicate with anyone in the world all in your pocket, it was crazy.
Like sci-fi stuff.
Totally. But visionaries like Steve Jobs, they anticipated this need, this latent desire. They figured out not just how to build it, but how to build and distribute it on a massive scale, making it accessible to billions of people.
That's so interesting. It's like they tapped into something that was already there, but no one had figured out how to actualize yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about having a great idea. It's about execution, about building the right systems and teams to actually bring that vision to life.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that Naval emphasizes is playing long-term games with long-term people.
What exactly does that mean? Is it about patience?
It's partly about patience, but it's also about who you choose to align yourself with. He's saying that lasting success in any area of life, whether it's wealth, relationships, knowledge, it all comes down to compound interest.
Compound interest, isn't that a financial term?
It is, but he applies it more broadly. Think about it. Trust, knowledge, experience, these things build up over time through consistent effort and the right connections. He advises very carefully choosing who you partner with in business, looking for intelligence, energy, and most importantly, integrity.
Yeah, and he specifically says to avoid cynics and pessimists.
Oh, absolutely. He calls them corrosive, like their negativity can actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, here's a skill set that Naval believes is super powerful: learning how to sell and learning how to build.
If you can do both, he says, you're basically unstoppable.
Right. Imagine being able to create something truly valuable and then having the ability to communicate that value, persuade others to get on board. That's a potent combination.
It's like the whole package, right? You're not just the idea person or just the builder. You can bring it all together.
And building, in this context, it's not just about physical products. It's also about building systems, organizations, anything that generates value.
Yeah.
And selling is about more than just closing deals. It's about marketing, communication, even inspiring others with your vision. Okay, so let's dive into what Naval calls the Trinity of Wealth.
This sounds kind of mystical. What's the Trinity?
It's actually very practical. It consists of specific knowledge, accountability, and leverage. He argues that you need all three to build real wealth.
Okay, let's start with specific knowledge. He says this isn't something you can learn in a traditional classroom setting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. He defines specific knowledge as expertise that comes from genuine curiosity, from a deep personal interest, not from just following the latest trends or chasing a hot career.
So it's like something you're naturally drawn to.
Exactly. He says it often feels like play to you, but to others it looks like hard work. It's knowledge that's usually gained through experience, through apprenticeships, hands-on learning.
Not just textbooks.
Right. And it's often technical or creative, something that can't be easily outsourced or automated. He uses himself as an example. He's always loved reading and technology, and that naturally led him into venture investing. Even skills like sales can become specific knowledge when you really master them.
So it's about finding that unique intersection of your passions and what the world values. Okay, the second part of the Trinity is accountability. He says you should be willing to take responsibility, put your name on your work, even when there's risk involved.
Yeah, he's big on ownership. He believes that when you embrace accountability, you signal confidence, and people are more likely to trust you with more responsibility, more equity, which ultimately gives you more leverage. It's a positive feedback loop.
It's like when you're willing to bet on yourself, others are more likely to bet on you too. Okay, and finally, leverage. Naval describes it as a force multiplier for your judgment. He breaks it down into three types: labor, capital, and products with no marginal cost of replication, like code and media.
Yes, and he has a clear favorite among these. While labor leverage, meaning managing people, is the oldest form, he sees it as the messiest, the most complex. Capital leverage, using money to make more money, is powerful, but it's what he calls permissioned. You usually need someone else to give you access to that capital. But the type of leverage he's most excited about is what he calls permissionless leverage, which basically creating products that can be replicated at almost no cost, like software, digital content, online courses, things like that.
Yeah, he even famously said an army of robots is freely available. It's just packed in data centers.
Exactly. It's the leverage of the digital age, and it allows you to scale your impact massively without needing to manage tons of people or raise huge amounts of capital. Okay, so after laying out the Trinity of Wealth, Naval talks a lot about judgment, the ability to make good decisions. He says it comes from experience, but you can speed up the process by focusing on foundational knowledge.
What kind of foundational knowledge?
Well, he actually kind of downplays traditional business degrees. He recommends studying things like microeconomics, game theory, psychology, persuasion, ethics, math, and computer science. The fundamentals that apply across different fields.
Interesting. It's like he's saying focus on the mental models that help you make better decisions in any context.
And he's a huge advocate for learning by doing. He says, reading is faster than listening. Doing is faster than watching. He even gives this practical tip about setting a high personal hourly rate, even if it feels ridiculous at first, and using it as a filter for how you spend your time.
Basically, don't waste time on things that are below your worth.
Exactly. It forces you to focus on higher value activities. Now, the ultimate aim, according to Naval, is to become the best in the world at what you do. He says you should keep refining your niche until it truly reflects your unique strengths.
But he cautions against the allure of get-rich-quick schemes. There's no shortcut to building real wealth.
No. He emphasizes that lasting wealth comes from consistently applying your specific knowledge with leverage over time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And this becomes even more important in a world where technology has made it easier for anyone to consume products from anywhere, But it's also made production more concentrated. The best in any field can now reach a global audience.
That's fascinating. It's like the playing field has changed and specialization is more important than ever.
Right. He also talks about how having strong foundations and core principles is more valuable than jumping into advanced concepts too early.
Mm.
He says it's better to be a 9-10 or 10-10 on foundations than to try to learn fancy techniques.
So master the basics before you try to get too fancy. He also draws a cool parallel between compound interest in finance and its application to relationships and knowledge.
Yes, the idea of intellectual compounding. It's like, just as your financial investments can grow exponentially over time, so can your knowledge base and the strength of your relationships. He uses Eli Gill as an example, showing how consistently over-delivering in business dealings creates a compounding effect of trust and opportunity. It's about finding that 1% that you can really go all in on and seeing the results over time.
And speaking of going all in, he circles back to equity ownership, emphasizing why it's so crucial for building wealth. He contrasts it with the limitations of just working for a salary and highlights the power of generating passive income and owning the upside of a successful venture.
It's about having skin in the game, participating in the growth of something you believe in. And he makes this really interesting point about how pursuing things you're genuinely interested in often leads to the best work and can even lead to financial success as a byproduct.
It's like following your intellectual curiosity can lead you down unexpected paths. He also talks about being patient, waiting for the right moment when your skills align with a real need in the world. In the meantime, he says, build your brand by giving away your work for free.
Exactly. It's about playing the long game, creating value, and building a reputation that will pay off in the long run. Now, he revisits leverage and again emphasizes the power of permissionless leverage, the leverage of code and media. He even says, forget rich versus poor, it's leveraged versus unleveraged.
So basically, he's saying that it's not about how much money you have in the bank, but about how effectively you can amplify your efforts and your judgment.
Right. He's a big advocate for prioritizing independence and autonomy over just chasing a high salary. He says, the dream is to be paid for your output, not your input.
To be judged on the value you create, not just the time you spend.
Exactly. And he explains how leverage creates this disconnect between effort and results, which makes good judgment even more critical.
And he gives the example of 1,000x programmers, those rare individuals who, because of their skills and leverage, can produce results that are far greater than what a typical programmer might achieve.
It's about being able to multiply your impact. And that's really the goal, to be paid for your judgment, not just your time, with technology doing the heavy lifting. He points to CEOs as an example. They're highly compensated because of their leverage and their judgment. But he also emphasizes the importance of building a track record, demonstrating that you can actually make good decisions. He uses Warren Buffett as an example, someone who's built a reputation for having incredible judgment.
So it's not enough to just be smart. You have to prove it.
Yeah.
And he circles back to prioritizing and focusing, saying value your time ruthlessly. He even suggests setting an absurdly high hourly rate for yourself, even when you're young and broke, and then acting accordingly.
It's about creating a mental framework that forces you to make the most of your time. If a task is below your rate, delegate it or don't do it at all. Okay, now he delves into some of the psychological aspects of wealth building. He says that negative beliefs about wealth can actually prevent you from accumulating it.
So basically, your mindset matters.
It's huge. He says optimists tend to do better in life, and if you have these deeply ingrained beliefs that rich people are bad or that money is evil, it can subconsciously sabotage your efforts.
You're basically blocking your own path.
Yeah. He also draws this distinction between zero-sum games, like the pursuit of status, and positive-sum games, like creating wealth, where everyone can potentially benefit. He says avoid the status games, they're a distraction. Now, he gives this interesting tip for surrounding yourself with successful people. He says, help them first. Karma works.
So basically, find ways to be valuable to those you admire, even if there's no immediate reward. It's about playing the long game in relationships, too.
Exactly. And he emphasizes the long-term perspective in wealth creation as well. He says, don't count, just keep doing.
It's about focusing on the process, not getting obsessed with checking your net worth every day.
Right. Now, he wraps up this section on wealth with a pretty important caveat. He says that money can solve money problems, but it doesn't guarantee happiness.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people learn the hard way.
He even suggests that the person you become while making money might need to relearn how to be happy. It's like the skills you need to accumulate wealth might not be the same skills you need to cultivate happiness,
So it's almost like you have to rewire your brain in a way.
in a sense.
Yeah.
He also defines retirement as the point when you stop sacrificing today for an imaginary tomorrow.
That's interesting. It's not necessarily about age or having a certain amount of money, but about a state of mind.
Exactly, and he outlines several paths to that. Financial independence, drastically reducing your expenses, or finding work you genuinely love.
So basically you have options.
Right. And as a final thought on wealth, he says, the way out is to be authentically yourself, figure out what society wants, do it well, apply leverage, and take ownership. Okay, so that was a whirlwind tour of Naval's ideas on wealth.
Now let's switch gears and talk about happiness. This is where things get really interesting. Naval's whole approach is that happiness isn't some fleeting emotion, but a skill you can develop.
Yeah, and he's not just theorizing about it. He shares his own personal journey, how he used to rate his own happiness as a 2 or 3 out of 10, and how he's now consistently at a 9 out of 10.
Wow, that's quite a transformation. And he's clear that money isn't the key.
No. He says financial security can help, but it's a relatively small part of the equation. The majority of his happiness has come from intentional changes in his mindset and his habits.
So how does he define happiness?
He talks about it as a state of being present, of cultivating inner peace. He says this is our natural state, but we often get caught up in this feeling that something's missing, this constant striving for something more.
Like we're always chasing the next thing.
Exactly. And that's what takes us away from happiness. He really emphasizes the importance of appreciating each moment, choosing to be happy, and interpreting events in a positive light whenever possible.
It sounds like it's about shifting your focus from what you lack to what you already have.
Exactly. And he also makes this point about how the world is mostly fixed, but we are malleable. So it's more effective to change ourselves than to try to change the world. And he talks about cultivating indifference to things outside your control.
So basically letting go of things you can't influence.
Right. He says lower your identity, quiet your mind, and avoid negativity. And he's pretty blunt about happiness being a choice. He says it's just like choosing to love or be passionate. He even views memories and our sense of identity as potential burdens that can prevent us from fully experiencing happiness.
It's like we get so attached to the stories we tell ourselves about who we are that we forget to just be.
It's about letting go of those narratives and becoming more present, more open to experience. Now, he gives this cool definition of enlightenment. He says, enlightenment is the space between your thoughts.
That's such a simple but profound way to put it.
Right. And it highlights how enlightenment isn't this distant, mystical goal, but something we can potentially experience in those brief moments when our mind is quiet. He also clarifies that when he talks about happiness, he's not necessarily talking about constant joy or bliss. It's more about a state of peace, of being able to weather the ups and downs of life without losing your inner equilibrium.
So it's not about avoiding negative emotions altogether.
No, it's about being able to experience them without getting overwhelmed, without letting them dictate your overall sense of well-being. He says, a happy person interprets events without losing inner peace. And he has this really thought-provoking statement, every desire is a chosen unhappiness.
That's pretty radical. So wanting things is what makes us unhappy.
It's not so much about wanting things in general. It's about the attachment to those desires, the belief that we won't be happy until we get that thing, achieve that goal, reach that status. He's pointing out that this constant chasing of desires can keep us stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction.
It's like being on a hedonic treadmill. You get what you want, and then you immediately start wanting something else.
Exactly. And he talks about how we adapt to positive changes really quickly. So that new car or that promotion might give you a temporary boost, but then you quickly get used to it, and you're back to your baseline level of happiness.
So external achievements don't lead to lasting happiness.
Not on their own. He even cautions against getting too good at a game, especially if it's a high-reward game, because you might keep playing it long after it stops being fulfilling.
It's like you get trapped by your own success.
In a sense, yeah. Now he points to envy as one of the bigger obstacles to happiness.
Comparing yourself to others, always feeling like you're coming up short.
Right. He says the way to overcome this is to realize that life is a single-player game. Your journey is unique. Your goals are yours.
So stop comparing your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20.
Exactly. Now, here's the good news. Naval believes that happiness, like any skill, can be built through habits.
So just like you build physical health through exercise and nutrition, you can build happiness through the right practices.
Exactly. He says peace and happiness are skills that can be learned and improved, and he offers some specific examples of habits that can help. Avoiding alcohol and sugar, limiting social media, being mindful, looking for the positive in every situation, getting enough sunlight, questioning your desires, cutting back on caffeine, and exercising regularly.
Those are pretty practical things that people can actually implement.
Yeah, they're about creating a healthy foundation for your mind and body. And he also makes this interesting observation that the more judgmental you are of others, the more lonely you tend to feel.
So basically, being kinder to others makes you happier.
In a sense, yeah. It's about recognizing our shared humanity, our interconnectedness. He even gives this kind of funny tip. Tell your friends you're a happy person.
Like fake it till you make it.
It's more about reinforcing that identity for yourself. It's a form of self-affirmation. Now he encourages prioritizing interests over obligations, pointing out that while the news is often full of negativity, long-term trends are usually positive.
It's like choosing to focus on the bigger picture rather than getting caught up in the daily drama.
Right. And he advises avoiding zero-sum games, like politics and status seeking, and instead finding ways to naturally increase your serotonin levels, which is a neurotransmitter that plays a big role in mood regulation. Now, when it comes to changing habits, he suggests tackling one big desire at a time, and when faced with minor annoyances, he recommends asking, what's the positive?
So it's like training your brain to look for the good in every situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also reflects on the impermanence of everything, saying there is no legacy. And he suggests that acknowledging this can actually bring peace because it frees you from the pressure of trying to create something that will last forever.
It's about finding joy in the present moment rather than constantly striving for some future outcome. He also makes a point about saving yourself. He says that no doctor, trainer, or guru can make you healthy, fit, or calm. It's all on you.
It's about taking ownership of your well-being.
He also encourages you to be yourself, even if it's a little weird. He says you're unique and you don't have to follow someone else's checklist for success or happiness. He even suggests that irrational obsession can be a good thing because it can fuel truly original work.
It's about embracing your quirks, your passions, the things that make you different. And he urges you to prioritize your health above all else, saying easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life.
That's a pretty powerful way to put it. Okay, so now he gets into meditation and mental strength. He talks about the breath as a gateway to the autonomic nervous system and says most suffering comes from avoidance.
It's like resisting the things you don't want to feel actually makes them stronger. He calls meditation intermittent fasting for the mind and advocates for practices like choiceless awareness and non-judgmental acceptance as ways to quiet the mind and see reality more clearly.
So it's about becoming the observer of your thoughts rather than getting swept away by them.
Exactly. He also encourages continuous learning, saying you should set up systems for learning rather than just chasing specific goals.
So it's more about cultivating a lifestyle of learning rather than just trying to acquire a specific set of knowledge.
Right. And he advocates embracing contrarian thinking, finding what you're truly interested in, and developing skills like math and persuasion. Okay, so towards the end, he explores this idea of choosing to free yourself. He points out that the hardest part is often figuring out what you actually want and realizing that there are no adults who have it all figured out.
It's like admitting that no one really knows what they're doing. We're all just making it up as we go along.
Exactly. And he distinguishes between freedom to the ability to do certain things and freedom from the internal liberation from negative emotions and external pressures.
So it's about achieving inner freedom, not just external freedom.
Exactly. He says, release expectations, don't spend time making others happy, and break the habit of uncontrolled thinking. Okay, and finally, he tackles the big question, the meaning of life.
Does he have an answer?
Well, he suggests that it's personal. There might not be any inherent meaning, so you might have to create your own. Or he offers this interesting possibility. Maybe it's about locally reversing entropy, bringing order to chaos. He encourages living by your values, finding a partner who shares those values, and exploring the concept of rational Buddhism, which is essentially taking the practical tools for happiness from Buddhism without necessarily buying into the religious beliefs. And he ends with this powerful reminder, the present moment is all we have.
So basically, be here now, don't dwell on the past, don't obsess about the future.
Exactly. Okay, so listeners, those are some of the key insights from our deep dive into Naval Ravikant's Almanack. We explored his ideas about building wealth through skill, ownership, and leverage. and how to cultivate lasting happiness through conscious habits and mindset shifts.
And here's a final thought for you to chew on. Naval says that every desire is a chosen unhappiness. What if you consciously shifted your focus from chasing external goals to cultivating contentment with what you already have? How might that change your daily experience?
That's a really powerful question. And if you're interested in exploring more of Naval's thinking, you can find him on Twitter at Naval. His podcast is called Naval, and his website is nave.al. There's also a great collection of curated excerpts from his work at readwise.io Naval. We really encourage you to dive deeper into these ideas, find what resonates with you, and keep exploring. This is just the beginning of your journey.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.
See you next time.